What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another video from the 10-7 MMA channel. And this video is all about a recap and an update on the Dricus versus Ariel Helwani beef that began long ago when Dricus, I think, made his first appearance or one of his earliest appearances on the MMA Hour back then. Now it's the Ariel Helwani Show, as they've rebranded and whatever. Anyways, Dricus, after this original interview that he had, which I think it really rubbed Dricus the wrong way, and his coach, he did not show up on Ariel's show for quite some time. He even ghosted him at one point. I found that footage. I'm going to show it to you guys as well, just as more evidence of the entire beef. But I'm going to go back. I'm going to rewind the clock, and I'm going to show you how it began, where it got bad, and then I'm going to tie it off at the end with finally Dricus coming back on the Ariel Helwani show earlier this week. And I'm going to show you that I still feel like he's pretty annoyed with Ariel, and it's pretty hilarious. And I think Ariel made it worse with some of the questions he asked. Dricus was not too fond of those questions. But anyways, we're going to go back to what started it all. Dricus, I apologize if you do see this. Sorry for bringing this back up again. But this is something that you said back in the day that really got you a lot of attention and maybe helped you eventually get that title shot, or at least get some heat behind people wanting to see you get that title shot. People haven't really brought this up in some time, which I think is good. I'm not trying to criticize Dricus for these statements whatsoever. I'm just telling a story, and I think it's a very interesting story. So let's go back to the comments that kicked everything off. Now, before I play these comments, I do want to say, as we've gotten to know Dricus through many interviews, through many title fights, and being this dominant champion, one thing that I've realized about Dricus is he's possibly one of the smartest MMA fighters in the game in the UFC. He is very, very intelligent. You can see it from not only his fighting, obviously, but as well the way he answers questions, the way he interviews, his thought process. He's so well spoken. So he's a really intelligent guy. And I do think that when he made these statements, he knew what he was doing. He knew he was going to get a big response. And I think it was calculated. Maybe he didn't know it would be as big as it was and as controversial, but I think he said it in the hopes of trying to drum up some friction between him and Izzy, who was the champ at the time, and to try and slide his way into a title shot. It more or less worked, and everything has worked out very well for him. So I just wanted to start by saying I think he knew what he was doing here, even though he did it very subtly. I think he knew what he was doing. So check this out if you don't remember.
Well, I mean, did those belts ever go to Africa? As far as I know, it came to America and New Zealand. I'm going to take a belt to Africa. I'm the African fighter in the UFC. Myself and Cameron, we breathe the African air. We wake up in Africa every day. We train in Africa. We're African born. We're African raised. We still reside in Africa. We train out of Africa. That's an African champion, and that's who I'll be.
So okay, so anyways, credit to MMA Guru. He's a legend. He was the one that brought spotlight and attention to this entire story in the first place, because Dricus made these statements. Now, he never said, I'll be the only real African champ or things like that, but he made those statements, I think, realizing that it was going to rub people the wrong way or get some attention. So whatever it is, he made those statements, and everybody got upset. Kamaru Usman got upset. Israel Adesanya got upset. I think partially because he was misquoted as saying, I'll be the first real African champ, which he didn't say. His coach said something like that in a tweet, but Dricus, to his credit, didn't actually say that. Now, of course, this gets a little murky. And while Dricus didn't say anything to bring up or implicate race whatsoever, obviously those were the undertones, and I think that's what people picked up on. And I can understand that from my perspective, as my family's Indian. My parents grew up in India, and not that I would be so offended per se, but it would be kind of weird considering that the UK colonized India and did what they did. It would be weird for a UK guy, for example, to go to India. Let's say he was born in India, raised in India, grows up in India, and then he's claiming out there that, hey, like, I'm the real Indian champ. I don't know. Not that I would be offended, but if you think about it in that context, like, I think I don't know. I just think that sheds a little bit of light on it. Like, it'd be weird. I'd be like, wait, what? It's just a bizarre thing. And so not that I would get triggered so much as some of these other folks did, but you can see that it just makes people feel a certain way. Let's put it like that. And I think Dricus knew that, and I think he played off of that, and to his credit, it worked. And I don't think he said anything that crazy. But then what Ariel does is, when all the stuff was going crazy, there was a lot of controversy around those statements, and it was really blowing up out of control. Izzy was getting very upset. I think Kamaru Usman was getting very upset. So then Ariel has him on a show and he really grills him. Now, if you just look at Dricus's facial expressions during these interviews, I'm just going to show you a couple of points where he asks some hard-hitting questions, almost trying to pin Dricus down into, or at least this is what MMA Guru is alleging, almost trying to gaslight him and pin him down to get him to say or to insinuate that he was indeed trying to make this about race, which he never did. To his credit, he never did. Maybe that was under the surface, and people were saying, "Hey, wait a minute, your people colonized Africa. You can't be saying that. That's weird." Just like if somebody from the UK went to India and said the same thing, it'd be a little weird. But anyways, to his credit, Dricus never actually said that. So let me start with this clip of Ariel kind of grilling Dricus.
Comment like, I'm Canadian, I live in America, but I'm still Canadian, and you know what I mean? Like, people can have dual citizenship,
and Dricus can have a singular citizenship, which Usman doesn't think he can.
He feels very African to me, like, you know what I mean? Like, what like, he's from there, he's got the passport, his family is from there. What's the problem?
Dricus is from there, he's got the passport.
So anyways, MMA Guru is really coming to his defense, but again, it's like he's grilling him on this point and really trying to catch him almost as if he did something really morally objectionable. And maybe some people do feel that he did that, but in my opinion, what this was is it was a carefully crafted statement where I don't think he overstepped the line. Maybe there was, as I mentioned, an undercurrent of some sort of implication, but he never did that. And I think he did this intentionally and strategically to get a big buzz, and it worked. But Ariel's really trying to pin him down, and you can see he knows what's going on because he's a very intelligent guy. He knows what Ariel's trying to do. He's not having it. He's not happy about this whatsoever, and eventually gets pretty upset with Ariel. I think they posted about him, and then he didn't go on a show for some time. But let me show you one other point in this interview that MMA Guru also highlighted. Check this out.
Do you understand why this may have rubbed some people, including Kamaru and Israel, who we'll get to in a moment, the wrong way, given the history between whites and blacks in Africa?
He makes it about race. This has nothing to do with the history between whites and blacks in Africa. And Ariel brings it up and makes it about that. That's never been a thing.
And again, to MMA Guru's credit, what he's saying is right. Dricus didn't bring it up, but it's there. It's underneath the surface. And it's more obvious when I think when I talk about that example myself of somebody going to India, growing up there and saying, "Hey, I'm the real Indian." It'd be like, wait, but you're not really, you know what I mean? And I'm not questioning Dricus's African identity. I'm just saying that's immediately the question that pops in your head. It's just weird. It feels weird. So yes, race was not brought up explicitly by Dricus, but we also understand why Ariel was asking these questions and bringing this up, because this is what popped into people's minds consciously or subconsciously.
Outside of when Usman brought something up, which I'm going to get to later on in this video, which is a perfect counter argument to something that Ariel Helwani said, and he even brings it up himself when Dricus is not on screen once he's done with the interview. Ariel makes this about race. Let's see what Dricus has to say about that.
Well, to bring color into it, for me, is the most ridiculous thing ever.
To bring color into it, for me, is the most ridiculous thing ever.
That is the one thing that from this whole thing that really pisses me off, to be honest, is that color was brought into it. I've never even mentioned color because it makes absolutely no difference to me.
He's never mentioned.
Okay, so we're gonna pause from this clip, but you could see, number one, how angry he's getting, and to his credit, he never did bring it up. That is true. However, you have to approach it from a logical standpoint. You understand why Ariel brought that up. It's because that's what everybody else was feeling and saying, whether or not it was justified. But I think where Ariel went wrong here, maybe at least from the perspective of Dricus, is just the constant hammering and trying to almost push him into a corner to make him feel or say that he had done something wrong and that maybe he shouldn't have gone that way. But Dricus, he never backed down. He stood his ground, and he just kept pushing back. And it was a pretty uncomfortable interview. You could see that Dricus was pretty mad. Okay, now fast forward to his fight for the belt, his first fight for the belt against Sean Strickland. And this was in, I think, January of 2024. And yeah, so it was January, I think, the 20th of 2024. This is the following Monday on January 22nd. So this is after that crazy interview. Dricus was upset. He planned to be back on Ariel's show. Ariel was planning to have him on, I think, as the final guest, where they still had an hour left in the show. Obviously, this is what everybody was waiting for. And then this happened.
Like a 3rd-degree burn.
All right. Well, we got about an hour left in the show. It seems like DDP's team is having a hard time reaching DDP for whatever reason, but we are going to do our best and pray to the Almighty One above that he shows up. And if he doesn't, no harm, no foul. We'll make it happen. Let me just do this one quick thing right here.
It's just so funny. Like, you can see he's really disappointed and I think upset and very annoyed. And I get that. You make a plan, you schedule somebody, and especially for him, he's relying on everybody to show up at the scheduled time because he runs a live show. And I'm sure he spends a lot of time and effort organizing his guests and getting them queued up. I'm sure he has a team of people making sure, hey, they're on 10 minutes early, 15 minutes early, they're ready to go, whatever, right? So this is a disaster for him. Not trying to totally make light of it. I think if I was in his shoes, I'd be going crazy with anxiety. I get it. He cares about his show. He wants it to run smoothly. It is what it is. But anyways, so Dricus didn't show up. I think they later said that maybe there was a scheduling issue. They had the time zones flipped, so they were on 12 hours ahead or 12 hours behind, something like that. I don't know. I think this was still Dricus being a little annoyed. Okay, now we fast forward to this week, and Dricus finally returns on the show. He does show up, but he doesn't show up on camera, and he claims that's because he's out of town and the signal's really bad. I don't know if that's true. I don't think he wanted to be on camera because I still think he's not too sure what to make of Ariel and is not the biggest fan, but decided to go on the show for whatever reason. And it's funny how Ariel opens the show. He brings it up. He brings it up that they ghosted him right off the bat, and I don't think Dricus is too fond of this opening. Check this out.
Is he really there? Dricus du Plessis,
I am here indeed.
He is there. Dricus, you are here, but we don't see you. We only hear you.
Yeah, unfortunately so. I'm a better. I went on a little breakaway, and yeah, the signal's not great.
I think he's annoyed. And he's basically, I think he's even, I could be wrong. I think he's giving Dricus a little crap for not being on video, but let's keep watching.
I mean, isn't that what a breakaway really is?
It is. Yes. No, it is. And I do appreciate you joining us on your vacation. I have to say, the sound of your voice on this program is warming my cold heart, Dricus. It is lovely to hear from you because I wasn't sure about us anymore. You left us at the altar twice in a row last year after the win in Toronto. So I wasn't sure if there was going to be some, I don't know, some more heartbreak on today's program.
Well, here we are. We made it happen.
We made it happen. And thank you very much to your brother. And thank you to Danny for making it happen. I appreciate you very much. And I want to congratulate you on all the great things.
Okay. So anyways, there's that very awkward beginning. He's not too enthusiastic. And maybe that's another reason why he didn't want to be on camera, because I'm sure he has, you can't hide those facial expressions and those real emotions if you're not too fond of somebody. I wouldn't be surprised if that was the real reason he had the camera off. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it was just the signal. But anyways, now we go on and Ariel just makes it worse. So I'm going to show you 2 points in this interview where Dricus gets even more annoyed. Okay, so check this out. He's talking about his victory over Sean Strickland, and watch what Ariel asks.
Are you talking to yourself during the fight and saying, when's he going to bring more to the table? Even his coach was saying, during the fight, this is too predictable. When's he going to mix it up? When's he going to throw more combos? When's he going to try to threaten to take down? I know towards the end of the fight, he was doing a little more of that, but it was almost, too much too late. Are you questioning what's going on in the fight? Because the first time you guys fought, I mean, he threw almost double the amount of strikes your way back in Toronto as opposed to in Sydney last week.
Now, before we hear Dricus' response, immediately any logical person will recognize that this question is going to annoy Dricus. It's going to annoy anybody, fighter or not, because what is he doing? He's displacing the credit for Dricus, because Dricus is the one that disrupted Sean's rhythm. He should get credit for the lack of production and output from Sean. He did an amazing job with the varied strikes. I mean, it was a totally different performance from from Dricus that we got from this fight versus the first time they met. But again, he's talking about, hey, were you kind of confused that he wasn't doing more? He just wasn't coming out and giving it his all. Is basically what he was saying. That's going to obviously annoy Dricus. Now, you could also argue that Ariel has to ask tough questions sometimes. A lot of people were saying that about Sean, but to start the interview off this way after they've already had a bit of a frayed relationship just cracked me up. Okay, so now listen to Dricus's response, and you can hear the annoyance in his voice.
Yeah, I think also how many strikes did I land? What was my striking accuracy in Toronto? 27%. What was my striking accuracy last week? That it changes the whole game. It changes the dynamic because it wasn't so much that Sean Strickland, when I was in there thinking, oh, he's not doing this. It's not the same guy I'm fighting. It looked exactly like the same guy I was fighting. I just evolved so much over the last year, and I said that was what was going to happen. And that's what I felt when I was in there.
Can I ask about your motivation going into?
Okay, we're going to pause here. I got one last clip. Now, in Ariel's defense, maybe he knows that that's going to annoy Dricus, and in his mind, because he's a very smart guy, he probably knows, and in his mind, hey, I got to ask the tough questions. This is what's on people's minds. It is what it is. I just think it's kind of funny considering their history, and he opens up relatively early with that weird, awkward opening, and then he throws that question out there. The way he laid it out, I'm sure Dricus took offense. Okay, let's check out this final mention that Ariel brings up, the staph infection.
A lot was made of his arm before the fight and how it looked, and it appeared as though he had staph, and afterwards that was confirmed as well. When you see that, do you talk to the UFC? Do you have concerns? Obviously, you're used to dealing with all kinds of things in training, but probably not something that you want to have to deal with going into a fight. Do you even ask about it? How do you approach that?
We all have problems when we go into fights. That's being a fighter. No respect for Sean for not using it as an excuse. I don't know if he did afterwards, but no, I mean, it was clearly staph. It wasn't a new staph. I can see that. It wasn't a new staph infection. It's been there for a while.
So let me know if you guys think you can hear that annoyance as well. Why is he annoyed? Obviously, because staph can be used as an excuse as to why Sean performed the way he did. So he's bringing it up and he's asking him about it. So immediately, what does he say? Hey, we all have problems. Let's not go down that narrative of making this some reason to justify why I won. Again, I think he feels like Ariel is attempting to remove some of the credit, whether intentional or not, but I think that's the way he took it. So he immediately smashes that. So anyways, will he show up again on the Ariel Helwani show? Probably. I think he will. But is he coming away from this feeling very fond about Ariel? I doubt it. I just think it's so funny. But anyways, good interview. Great interview. Watch the whole thing if you can. Again, on the Ariel Helwani channel, where the new home of the Ariel Helwani show is. Make sure to check it out. Let me know what you guys think. Did you guys enjoy this interaction? Do you guys find these beefs as entertaining and fascinating as I do? Is this also why you love the sport of mixed martial arts? Let me know in the comments. Thank you guys so much for joining, and we'll see you in the next video. Take it easy.